What's up? It's your boy D Change coming at you with another Daily Dave. It's Saturday, March 21st, 2020, and this is your daily COVID-19 update. I actually want to start sharing more like positive news stories and developments, as well as, I guess, practical action items rather than like, hey, here's all the doom and gloom or whatever. I mean, I want to say I've geared more towards like, hey, like, yeah, let's do hand washing, let's do social distancing, and there's a reason why. Um, but yeah, I definitely don't want to do like a daily update on numbers and stuff like that. There's plenty of content creators you can go to um, for information like that. But the reason why I thought about something like this was because I mean, clearly I've been listening to a lot of coronavirus related stuff. Um, a lot of these like podcasts and articles and videos have been supplanting everything in my queue. I have like really long queues for like podcasts, videos, and stuff like that. And since this is a very timely subject, I'm just like constantly latching on to stuff like this. Uh, and I definitely noticed I was like burning out from content like that. And I'm sure plenty of you guys are too, because it's just a lot of misinformation, a lot of like fear mongering, a lot of just too much like I'm scared, I don't know what to do, and too little like what can we do to help and stuff like that. Because I think you and I um, either have people close to us or know people who are going through tougher times because of this. So, yeah, like I've been hearing about like again, coworkers have been let go. Friends, hours have been reduced, income very much reduced. People that are just in financially crippling situations where something like this can basically ruin it for them. And I really don't want to get into an argument about like, how they got there or whatnot. This is just one of those times where I think a lot of people in the country and the world are impacted by it. And so I know I at least want to do something of some sort to help. And so I was inspired by this because of a couple of shows I did listen to earlier today slash like the last couple of days. One of them is from Hidden Brain. It's called Don't Panic. It aired on April 1st, 2019, and it's a two-parter, or like it's two stories in one. It's the first one is actually let me pull it up. The first one is actually called Panic in the Streets. And that was oh, both of these episodes were from 2016 apparently. So Panic in the Streets was actually about like Ebola, the outbreak in West Africa. And that was super interesting because it went through the same kind of like uh what would you call it, like process that this pandemic has. It's just that the difference is, generally the countries we have, well, generally in the United States and other countries that have experienced it so far, we have fairly advanced healthcare systems. But especially since in a lot of African countries that doesn't tend to be the case, Ebola was a much bigger deal over there. And so it was kind of implying that like one of the better solutions for a pandemic is aggressive contact tracing, because we are definitely seeing the economy like suffering from like this halt. Since we're locking down states, we're doing a huge reduction in business. So certain industries are being impacted heavily by this. And I mean like the service industry, like food services. Small businesses are suffering from this. And then like government assistance is basically targeting like corporations and large conglomerates, a lot of the like too big to fail industries. So there's kind of this fear that basically like if you're a small to medium sized business, you might not survive this quarantine period slash pandemic. And that's a very, that's very unsettling. um why did I get into this? I don't know. Shoot. Anyway, I wanted to keep it positive, but basically an alternative to just shutting everything down, clearly, because we're not going to do what China did, which is basically say, hey, everyone, just stop what you're doing, stay at home, and everyone's on full lockdown. We're gonna disinfect the streets and all that. So we're not gonna have that happen here, I don't think. But what we could have done in the beginning was um, traced all paths that like people took when they were first found out to be infected, or when we were actually testing. I don't. The problem is like this. Just I don't know. It's just gonna make me mad again. Never mind. Just the whole fact that like testing wasn't a priority, and then like now since we've abandoned that like method, it's just let's just delay everything, and that's understandable. Like the whole flatten the curve thing, and like honestly, isolation of infected people is like the most important thing. But regardless, everyone has a different threshold as to how seriously they want to take this or how restrictive they want to make their lives. So that's totally understandable. It's just like I guess in my case, it's like I just don't want to take the risk of bringing this virus home, and that is the bottom line. Um, Maybe for you or your family or your personal life, like it's not that big of a deal. Maybe you don't live with elder parents. Maybe you don't have neighbors that are immunocompromised or elderly or whatever. Totally fine. Just I don't know. Be responsible. Think about we over me is a good little soundbite I got from what's his name, Andy Stump. He was on Joe Rogan's podcast recently, and that was kind of like what he was saying. And I really liked how he was able to kind of present like his own point of view of like he's a Navy SEAL or ex Navy SEAL, I'm not sure, but he was he's been deployed to multiple like developing countries, and he was basically saying that like the what we're experiencing now with like these like empty shelves and um the difficulty of gathering supplies, like that is everyday life for other people in the world, and so it's kind of like a good thing that like Americans and people in developed countries are kind of experiencing this in the sense that hey, this is a perspective shift, right? And the line between developing to developed country is actually like a lot thinner than we thought it could be. Um, and I don't know. This is just related to like these conversations I've had with people where we'll agree that like, hey man, like people are just really soft here, right? I mean, I'm really soft. I know that for sure. But it's just this country has never had to like deal with stuff like, you know, actual land invasion, being war torn. There's huge emergency situations like that especially countries in Asia have had to. So yeah, I understand why everyone's like kind of just freaking out because it's like, oh my gosh, like what the heck is going on, and why are people being so stupid? Like, why are you stocking up? Why are we not doing this? Why can't I go have fun? Like, I get it. There's just it's too much noise. But I hope that we can learn from this in the sense that like, hey, this is a possibility and we should be prepared for it. So yeah, and I hope we could listen to more scientists rather than politicians because I see too much politicizing of the situation for my taste. But we're whatever. People are gonna be people, and everyone's gonna have their own point of views, etc. Free country, something like that. Um, so yeah, check out Hidden Brains. Don't panic. The second part of it is embrace the chaos, and it's kind of about like the psychology of why chaos should be allowed in like certain amounts, or why there is kind of this duality of order and chaos. And one of the examples it gave was like kind of about it was an experiment, an attempt at an experiment to get people to kind of give them autonomy, and then like figure out if um if certain things like push them a certain way. So the two examples they compared, I think, were like they let people decorate their own offices like however they wanted them to, or their own rooms however they wanted them to. But then in another case, they let them do it, but then like the the person who ran the test would come over and tell them, "Oh, we don't like things this way. You're gonna have to like put it all back." And that's where all like resentment grew. And I've actually noticed this in my own life, like I don't know if everyone's probably had a stage like this, but growing up, you feel rebellious, right? Like you're always like or there's that feeling of like, oh, my parents um are wrong, or they don't understand me. That's still true to today, right? But I don't think anyone likes being treated like a child, right? Um, and it's unfortunate because I think a lot of us do behave like children, so maybe we deserve it. But the idea of like someone straight up going like, "That's wrong. You're wrong, and you need to go back and do this." Like that always sucks. Like if you hear that in the workplace, like that's a really easy way to build resentment towards say like management or something like that, right? So I found that super interesting because it was like behavior patterns and like why people shift their behavior a certain way depending on their environment, right? So I think uh, what's also really cool about that episode was that it's kind of addressing the underlying idea that like after this perhaps our behaviors will change. So if you were to link it to the current pandemic, it's number one, don't we shouldn't freak out too much, but there are effective methods to containing something like this, and people are working on that. So I guess like have faith in that system. But as individuals, it's our own responsibility as well to protect ourselves and our communities. And then second of all, hopefully after all of this is said and done and the dust is settled, we can pick up better habits in the future. I definitely feel like from now on, I'm going to value hand washing a lot more. Because one reason why I didn't like it as much is because my skin dries out really easily. But that's something I can remedy easily with, carrying lotion on me or something like that. But to know, I guess just like to have the idea reinforced that hey, washing your hands for 20 plus seconds kills like viruses or breaks them apart, and that's what makes them effective, right? Or like these are the transmission vectors for most respiratory viruses. It's coughing, sneezing, droplets entering your own like orifices or whatever, or your own mucous membranes. Like that's I don't know. I guess it's common sense, but at the same time, like I kind of hate it when people say, "Yo, this is common sense." Like clearly it's not when we have to be telling everyone that this is like quote unquote common sense. Maybe it's a failure of education, maybe it's like the education system, or maybe it's just dude, like people's is like attention is like this interesting thing for people. You focus it on whatever you value the most at the time. So I'm willing to bet if you're like, this is an extreme example, but if you're working on like rockets that go to space, like maybe you're not thinking necessarily about like, oh, am I making sure that I wash my hands for 20 seconds every single time after I use the restroom or something like that. I don't know. It's just one of those things where if you were to legitimately stop in the middle of your day and ask yourself, hey, is this important? And then list another like 25 things that are important. You're going to have to like pick and choose. Like you literally can't have 30 priorities because that means none of them are important, right? It's that saying where it's like if you make everything a priority, then nothing is a priority. So anyway, I guess it's just it's interesting to see how people think and how they behave based on their environment. Damn it, I should have been a psychology and social behavior major. I was a cognitive sciences major, so I kind of chose the wrong psychology, quote unquote. Another thing I heard that was interesting. I'm gonna drop the links in this video's description as well. Another interesting thing I heard was, or yeah, that I heard was like an interview with the founder of morningbrew.com. Now he writes this newsletter that's basically like from everything I heard from that episode, I really enjoyed it. I heard him on the James Altucher like podcast, and he wrote an article. It's called Morning Brew's Guide. Well, he didn't write it actually. I don't know. Maybe they all contributed to it. Morning Brew's Guide to Living Your Best Quarantine Life. Again, I'll drop the link in there. But what I liked hearing in that episode was like, hey, these are positive things that you can do. You should always take time to improve yourself, invest in yourself. And now is a really great time, especially if you're like a white collar worker who has to work from home and stuff like that now. And you're like, oh no, I can't go out and stuff. So it's like the perfect time to do that. Um, Once again, mad respect to all the essential workers such as retail, food service, healthcare, etc., who have to, I guess, brave the environment and be out there and expose yourself and whatnot. Really feel for you guys. And then for everyone who also, you know, either lost their job or had their income reduced because of just a quote unquote shift in priorities. Um, but yeah, like I'm trying to find more sources of like, hey, these are nice things to read during this time rather than like, would you like some more doom and gloom? Because unfortunately, the way I curated my Twitter feed makes it so that all I hear is like really bad stuff, and it kind of sucks. Like such as yeah, what is it? Like the Department of Justice wants to enact emergency executive powers, and that could mean like what was it? Circumventing constitutional rights. And so like I don't know. That's a tough thing, especially like for Americans in general. Like there is this kind of there's this kind of line of thinking where like our constitutional rights should never be violated. So anytime legislation comes up or something like that that does ask for that, it's like, ooh, this might be a very long drawn out fight, right? So I don't know. It's a question of like for the greater good or for the ideals of the country, right? I don't know. Don't really want to get into that either. And last but not least, there's a guy named Peter H. Diamandis. I don't know. He's a doctor who's also on the Altucher podcast, and he's developing this kind of like machine learning system that finds news articles and tries to filter it out purely by like positive developments in science and technology and like proactive slash practical things you can do to like improve your life, so to speak. It's in a closed beta, so it's not like, unfortunately it's not something we can like, I guess, just like pull the feed from immediately. But they did make public is the pandemic edition. So if you go to futureloop.com/C19, then it actually aggregates all COVID-19 articles that are of like a positive nature, such as like developments of vaccines, treatments, and basically like, the science and technology that is developing from this emerging situation. So I think that's cool. I'm going to try to move on to stuff like I've got other episodes of like how can we help healthcare workers? How can we manage our like mental health and stuff like that during the pandemic? So yeah, I look forward to that in the future. Maybe depending on how I feel about sharing that content, I guess. But anyway, that's my update for today. I hope you enjoyed it. I don't know if I did. But yeah, just stay healthy, guys. Continue to, wash your hands, check up on your neighbors and your friends. Um, yeah, I don't know, hit up people that you haven't seen or talked to in a while. I've kind of started doing that. I've always been thinking like, oh, there's someone I wanted to talk to. Now's the perfect time to send them an email, send them a DM or something like that. And then whoever wants to like invest more time, yeah, like hop on some games together or do like a video chat together. So anyway, this was the Daily Dave for Saturday. Signing out. I hope you guys have a good weekend. Peace out.